Yes, what time is it? It's coming up to 9:15. Now, if you're overdrawn and you've maxed out your credit cards, how about a quick and easy loan? The drawback, it's got an interest rate of almost 2,000%.
Yes, that is what some payday loans equate to annually, and thousands of people are using them every month. Damon Gibbons is from a debt advice charity, and Robert Amlott is the editor of finance website moneyextra.com. Morning to you both. First of all, you know, you can sort of picture the situation where you need the money desperately for food, for, I don't know, children's clothes. You've got a poor credit rating. You've got nowhere to go, have you really?
No, I think that's the problem actually. We're talking about people who ordinarily would be able to borrow maybe on an overdraft or on a credit card to meet those one-off expenses. And actually they're already at the limits for those sorts of forms of borrowing. They're already in financial trouble, and actually going for an expensive loan from a payday lender is not going to help anything.
Robin, these companies are offering a service that, as we know, is desperately needed.
It is a service at the bottom end of the marketplace, it has to be said. This is the real sharp, hard-nosed end of lending, and it is terribly expensive. The way the world works is that the shorter the length of time you borrow money for and the smaller the amount of money you borrow, the more expensive it is. But this is an outrageously expensive way of borrowing. On average, you're looking at companies that will lend you £100 and charge you £25 for the privilege of doing so. So 31 days after you borrow £100, they want 125 back from you. And that's how the thousands of percents of APR are worked out. £25, by the way, on £100 is 1,286.1% APR, which actually is one of the cheaper levels of payday lending. But it is a service. It's something that's there as an emergency. The way it's marketed is as a one-off emergency. And if you use it that way, as I know some people have done, it is a useful service. The danger, of course, is that people do get sucked into reliance on this and rolling these debts over, and then it becomes horribly expensive.
OK, so what are the alternatives for people?
Well, we think at the moment the Office of Fair Trading ought to be enforcing requirements that came in through the Consumer Credit Act just in April of this year, and that is that lenders ought to behave responsibly. They ought to check whether people are already in financial difficulties before offering them another loan. And many payday lenders just simply do not make those sorts of checks, so that's something the OFT ought to look at straight away. But ultimately this is about working with the banks and some of the public money that's going into the financial services industry at the moment to make sure that money is available to consumers who are in problems and can refinance those loans at affordable rates and with decent terms and conditions.
Robin, what advice would you give to the individual? I know you're saying trying to avoid this line of funding. I mean, we've had an email in saying, can we not convince our employers to pay us over every 2 weeks rather than have to wait for the end of the month? Well,
there are people who will offer advances, companies I'm talking about, there are companies who will offer advances on income in that way. Yes, by all means you should talk to your employer first. Perhaps at this level of lending and at this level of requirement of money, we should be looking for people to be paid weekly once more in the way that they used to, rather than being paid monthly. That's actually a broader issue, but certainly there are a number of options you have. If you're that desperate for money, first of all, you've got to talk to your bank and speak to them, because that's going to be cheaper than a payday loan. Talk to your employer, because if he or she can give you an advance on your income, and let's face it, it might not be an advance, you might already have worked that week for that week's worth of money, even if you're not going to be paid for another 3 weeks. Talk to your employer. If it's that desperate, talk to the HR department, see what they can do, because they may well be able to help.
Yes, I mean, that's all very well if you've got an employer as well, isn't it?
Yes, most of these people will. They're targeting these loans at people who are in low-paid employment.
OK, thank you both. Thank you very much.